Hello and welcome. Today we're gonna learn about some Cajun music. So I'm gonna dive right in. So before I can actually talk about the music though, let's talk about Cajun culture. So when you hear Cajun, what do you think of? Princess and the Frog, maybe? I don't know. But Cajun culture is something we don't really think of. Mostly when I think of Cajun, I think like gumbo and Louisiana and like just that whole idea. But after reading about Cajun music, it's definitely opened my eyes to like there's so much more to it than like what we see, and it's funny because we don't know too much about Cajun music. So, to start off, in order to understand Cajun music, we need to understand where it came from. So, not ironically, but basically, let's start off with the Cajuns. So, the Cajuns, of course, there is some relation. They're important when it comes to talking about the history, but wait. So are the Creoles. Now, Creoles, that word, you might have heard it before and went, okay, it makes sense, it's kind of related. But these two people in particular have significance in the making of Cajun music. So let's talk about the Cajuns starting off. So basically, the Cajuns are originally from Arcadia, which is because of migration. So they migrated from Arcadia, which would be known today as modern day Canada or Nova Scotia, like way up in the Prince Edward Island area. So they came from there. They basically were indentured servants, and they were done, and they moved down south to as far as they went, and they ended up in Louisiana. So you might know them they're known as Arcadians, French Haitians, French Canadians, similar thing. The Creoles, they came here around the 16th and 17th century, and they are from France. And their ethnicity is mostly compiles of French, Spanish, African/Afro-Caribbean. Now, you might be looking at these two and going, what? How did they relate to the music? We're getting there. Now, the one thing you might notice, French. So, these two cultures might come from two very different places, but they do share some similar qualities, such as their French heritage. Clearly, they both speak that French language. They have some French influence in their culture. Not only that, their geographic space, or where they basically ended up, and they ended up in Louisiana, or the most southern part of Louisiana. So now you think, okay, they have the same area, they speak the same language, they should be good buddies, right? Well, that's a negative. They were not. And when you ask people about, if they have any Cajun or Creole background, or in them, I guess you could say, they will always make sure to differentiate. These two do not like being associated with one another, even though they speak the same language and they have the same culture. And funny enough, they interacted with one another through the fields, because so the Creoles, they're clearly not white, and they're not they have some mix in them, okay? And because of that, this was a time when Spain was taking over Louisiana, and the Spaniards did not like the Creoles, they basically called them racial slurs, and they were outcast to society. So they were forced to work in the fields. The Cajuns already worked in the fields because they wanted a quiet life. So basically they ended up interacting when they work. And because of that, you get the blending of the cultures and the linguistic tradition. They clearly both speak the same language. The Cajuns chose to speak French after they migrated. They were like, that's their language and that's what they've grown up with, so they kept it. Same with the Creoles. And the cultures basically mixed around a little bit. You could they definitely differentiated, hey, like there's still that separation, but they shared certain things, like certain dishes that, like gumbo, going back to gumbo. They talked about in the book how gumbo basically started off as a Cajun dish, and then from there it got added into, the Creoles added different spices and like different influences that made it what it is today, which is pretty cool. And another byproduct of that is Cajun music. So Cajun music, let's talk about that. It's time to talk about the birth of Cajun music. That was corny. But basically Cajun music, one of the defining things about Cajun music, it's upbeat, it's fun, and it's mostly a reflection of social life and being with your family and being together. And these, it just represents a good time of being together. And this mostly consists of a lot of fiddle music. That's always fun. But more importantly, the accordion, the button accordion, is very important. Like they required an accordion for all their, like, if you hear any Cajun music, there's an accordion in it. And that's just tradition. They've always had an accordion, they've always had fiddle, and they also have singing, lots of singing. And going back to way back here, because they speak French, a lot of their songs are in French. So that's pretty cool. Now, I talked about like the history of them and what the music is, but it also, now the question is, how do the two relate really? So the meaning behind Cajun music, yes, it's about social life, family, and togetherness, but at the same time, it's also talking about, I'm running out of space, ethnic identity. And it, oddly enough, this might be about togetherness, but it's togetherness within their own group. Because they use Cajun music to differentiate between the two races. Because clearly they are not of the same race, they're from different areas. And basically, the whole spiel with Cajun music is that it represents their identity and their roots. And that's mainly it. This thing, identity. They want to have that nostalgia of where they came from, and they want to remember where their roots are at. That's what's so important about Cajun music, and it's really awesome in my opinion. It is very sad that it has a lot of deep-rooted racial issues, but the fact that it's about knowing who you are and who your identity is and where you came from, and that goes back to a little bit about the singing. They sing in French. Even today, when the primary language is English, they sing in French, just to remember that they have that French heritage in their DNA. So I hope you enjoyed my little spiel about Cajun music, but the end is near, so dun 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 dun.